I think it is that time we all need to know that there are things that we literally do not forget. There are things we cannot just say, let's let this go. There are things that will literally happen to Black Americans and they will just act. It is high time we understand that. And it is high time we understand that you need to stay on your lane. It is high time you understand that Black Americans choose to be on their own and that's fine. Do you get? It is high time some of these white folks start teaching themselves if they so wish, because I know they will not teach themselves how to mind their business. I don't think that is big enough, because a lot of time you see people saying slavery was long time ago. Forget about slavery. Slavery was this ago. Forget about it. Jim Crow was long time ago. Redlining was long time ago. Are we not still having that modernized part of the slavery or blah blah blah? Or am I the only one seeing this? But anyways, welcome to the channel. My name is Sonia. Subscribe, like, comment, and share. And credits belong to the original creators of every single clips and stitches we have in at this episode. And I want to say a very big thank you to every single one of you liking, commenting, sharing, dropping super thanks, and also joining my membership. I do not take you guys for granted. You guys are absolutely the best. And yes, guys, with that being said, let's dive right into this video, and I'll be back with commentaries. Let's go watch, guys.
See, comments like these that are left in my comment section are made in order to elicit a similar negative oppression Olympic-y type of response back. But I'm way more healed than that. So instead, I use comments like this in order to educate the masses and teach everyone the history of the people of the lands that all of you are in. Indigenous people, tribal and detribalized. Detribalized being the people you guys call Latinos, and Black Americans have both endured chattel slavery, genocide, experimentation, lynchings, murders, massacres, kidnapping, displacement, rape, mass incarceration, police brutality, death by police, in cultural, linguistical, spiritual, and historical erasure. As they say, there's a dozen ways to skin a cat. The outcome is always the same. While they employ different tactics on different groups of people at different time periods in different regions, the outcome was still the same. Whether they overtly wrote anti-Black racism into law, or whether they covertly wrote anti-Native racism into law, the outcome was still the same. The outcome being that we are all still very much colonized, very much indoctrinated and assimilated, and very much still enslaved and going through genocide, with 500 years of generational trauma on our shoulders. The tactics were different because they learned from their mistakes. They adjusted or modified how they did things, but the outcome was still the same: dehumanizing and oppressive. It's weird to see when victims fight with other victims about who was abused more or worse. It's a very colonized way of thinking. If I'm being perfectly honest, if you're going to perpetuate white supremacy and colonial mindsets, then it makes your complaints about the same thing that you say you're against be completely invalid and performative. And honestly, I don't care what community it comes from. If you're out here playing oppression Olympics with other marginalized communities, then you got some deeper trauma you need to deal with. Go work on yourselves, because you end up being a barrier to liberation. It becomes the crab in the barrel mentality. At the end of the day, we're all at the fucking bottom. And until we learn how to work together to get out of the fucking barrel, we're just going to keep imploding on ourselves and pulling each other down back into the bottom. And we will never experience freedom. And one last thing to clear up this horrible, harmful misconception. Reservations are not resorts or suburban neighborhoods. Most reservations are living under the poverty line. There are still reservations that don't have any running water or electricity. Reservations were open-air prisons in which tribal people had to seek permission from an Indian agent before they could leave the reservation, and that went on until 1954. The vast majority of tribal nations and reservations do not have casinos either. And land given to us is not reparations. Literally giving something that they stole from us and returning it. They're not paying any extra dues for the pain that they caused. And in reality, they're not even giving us all of our lands. Walking into a grocery store and stealing a bag of oranges, and then coming back a couple hundred years later and saying, here's the orange peel of one of the oranges we took. My bad. No, we haven't been paid for our pain and suffering either. Even the few groups that may have gotten some kind of reparations, think a measly few $1,000s or even $20,000 per person is worth all that bullshit? That's about as much as what some people have gotten. And to keep it a buck, the only way any of us will get any kind of true freedoms is when we get our lands back. Because then we'll be free from colonialism and capitalism. But until that happens, we are all still living under the same colonial system. And we all are still being fucking oppressed. Do better. Have a day.
Imagine you bust your ass to get a project done, and then somebody comes in, snatches it out of your hand, takes credit, and then calls you lazy. That's how Black Americans feel in this country when it comes to the diaspora, because the diaspora seems to have this rhetoric that Black Americans are lazy. And because of that, I just want to give a quick history. We're going to take a place like New York. My family is from the South, but they migrated to New York. But we're going to give a history about what most Black Americans from the South did to get to the North. So Black Americans from the South, specifically South Carolina, Georgia, they obviously started the civil rights movement. There was no diaspora. The civil rights movement was started from Black Southern Americans. And so all of the labor, from getting spit on to being arrested to being bombed, being killed, losing their children, all of that came from Southern Black Americans. And the crazy thing is, Black people didn't just benefit from that. Asian people benefited, the Irish benefited, the Italians benefited. All of these people who were discriminated against in America and not considered white benefited from the fight of poor Black people in the South. And so once the civil rights was enacted and we were able to mobilize, most Black Americans migrated from the South to places like Chicago, New York, Philly, all of the popular northern cities. And so most of the men who were from the South, they got into construction, and eventually they got into unions. And these were fair paying, good paying jobs, regardless of what was going on. But what happened with that is the Italian mafia, or the mob, whatever you want to call them, they took over the unions. They made them extremely fraudulent, and they pushed out everybody Black, because Black people are not allowed to have a piece of the pie. And so people like my grandfather were forced to go without jobs or have jobs under the table, because they can no longer get fair compensation, fair wages. They can no longer get into the construction fields that they were into, when that's what allowed them to thrive in New York. And so because most Black Americans owned homes or even rented homes, but they had homes in places like Queens and Brooklyn. But what happens in the 70s is project housing or public housing opens up, and it's marketed to Black people as if it's something that gives them affordable living. It's affordable in a place that is extremely expensive. And so essentially, Black people moved to projects because they were supposed to be affordable communities, giving them a piece of the pie. And I hate the rhetoric about projects, because projects did not always start out as something negative. Crack in that epidemic turned the projects into something negative, but that's a whole nother history. But it obliterated the Black community, but it was pushed to the Black community. And so after Black Americans have done all this labor to make a fair living, make sure we have equal rights, make sure we won't be lynched if you are Black or if you look like any one of us. We did all this labor and we still didn't have shit to call for it, but at least we had somewhere to live. And so, what do Black Caribbeans do? Black Caribbeans see all of the labor that we have done and they say, oh no, we're not going to take that and mimic it in our country. We're going to go and step over the people who have built this country and we're going to pretend that they are lazy and they don't work hard enough. And that is so offensive and insulting. It makes no sense. And while I understand the rhetoric that is pushed to the Caribbean culture and just the overall diaspora about Black Americans, specifically Africans, at some point you have to understand that that is a level of ignorance that is solely your doing. You have, if you can educate yourself to become a doctor, you can educate yourself about the culture that you are benefiting from and the backs of people that you are stepping on. Because had it not been for Black Americans being willing to be spit on and bitten by dogs and arrested and brutalized, you would not be in this country acting like it's the land of the free and the home of the brave. Aligning with white America's depiction of Black Americans is a choice at this point because there is sole proof of what a Black American has done for this country. And it's extremely frustrating because the diaspora has a cool option. At Cowboy Carter, everybody was happy to be Black. When it's Martin Luther King Day or when Malcolm X is brought up, everybody wants to be Black when it's time for us to celebrate the things that are prideful and the great things that we've done. But when it's time to give us credit for that and when it's time to say that we have culture, nobody wants to do it. Nobody wants to be Black American. When it's time to when whiteness shows up, nobody wants to be Black American. And so if you cannot respect our culture and or the ways that you have benefited from it, it's important that you shut the fuck up.
Let me tell you why I care. Because everything that you see happening to immigrants in this country right now has happened to Black people living in America. This is actually a play from a very old playbook, and it is important for us to know our history. During the antebellum era, between the years of 1808 and the 1860s, our ancestral family members who were born in this country could be disappeared at any moment. Contrary to what a lot of people may think or even how we were taught, there were so many ways that our families were torn apart, and it wasn't just on the auction block. Despite enslavers creating this false ideology that Black people didn't have the capacity to feel the same kind of pain and angst when family was lost that they did, they used all kinds of trickery to separate families. They were trying to avoid all of the distress and wailing and weeping that would sometimes bring work on the plantation to a halt. So a very diligent and hardworking enslaved person would sometimes be sent into town on an errand, not knowing that there was a pre-arranged sale. So when they went to the mercantile to pick up dry goods or to pick up a horse from a stable, there was someone waiting to take them away. And their families, in most cases, would never see them again and would not ever know what happened to them. Slavery survivors who were interviewed as a part of the slavery narratives for the Federal Writers Project in the 1930s spoke about this phenomenon. According to their testimonies, having a family member disappeared, not knowing if you would ever see them again, was worse than death. But the idea of getting up one morning and then never seeing your husband, your mother, your sister, your father, or one of your children ever again, it was a horrific circumstance. They believed that if their loved one had died on the plantation and was buried on the plantation, they could see that they were no longer suffering. They were no longer enslaved. They would no longer have to be beaten and endure all the other horrible things that happened during slavery. It is incredibly important that we all know our history, because if we don't, we will not recognize the patterns. And recognizing the patterns in history allows us to be proactive instead of reactive. In my humble opinion, whether you are an American citizen or an immigrant living in America, it is important for you to know truthful American history, and that includes slavery history and the history of Black people in this country. Because we know that the people who do know this history are using that old playbook to relive this history once again.
I think people are still very confused by the rest and relaxation that Black people are deciding to take during this, economic time period. Because to them, before the veil was lifted, I think him being in office has made people realize how broken our country is. But Black people have realized for years and centuries how broken this country is already. So for them, they feel like, why aren't you fighting? But for years, they were already fighting, already doing all the work. And they were being gaslit and told that, oh, it's not true, the country's fine, you guys are just victims. And I feel like Black Americans learned very, very quickly that you cannot appeal to a racist because they are not human beings. They quite literally are just entities with human skin. So they're surprised and shocked that people are not doing anything, or in their eyes. But the thing is, relaxing and being joyful is also a form of resistance. It is a form of rebellion. Choosing to not engage with narcissist tactics that are literally targeting you because of what you look like is resistance. There is nothing that America hates more than Black people saying no and not giving them free labor.
Anyways, welcome back, guys, and that's all I literally got for this video. And let me know what you think in the comment section. And I will keep saying this, and I'm gonna be blunt about it. If you're, sorry guys, my camera is shaking. If you're literally an immigrant in America and you don't know how to respect Black people, honestly, the losses are on you. That's just the honest truth. And if you are a white person in America, you expect Black Americans to just keep quiet and forget about every single thing that has literally happened, moved on with their life as if nothing happened, you are also one of the problem. You see, a lot of times why a lot of people keep asking Black Americans, why are you guys not saying anything? Why are you guys quiet? It's because at the end of the day, Black Americans literally know that they own themselves alone. They stand alone for themselves. Because no matter how some of these Black people from different countries, even some of this race like Latinos, Hispanics, blah, 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 claim to love them, at the end of the day, they are going to turn against them and bite the finger that fed them. So it is quite understanding if Black people are saying, we are minding our business, anything you're going to be doing is on you, we don't care about what happened. I understand, but the only thing you should never do is to always tell Black Americans to forget about slavery that is long time ago. There are some things you will forgive, but you can never forget. And there are some things that they will literally do to you that can never forgive, no matter how you're trying to forgive yourself. A lot of people have literally betrayed Black America, especially these Black Americans that are enslaved. A lot of people have betrayed them. A lot of race have betrayed them. Even from their own countries that they are supposed to have identity, they have betrayed them. And can we please stop asking Black Americans, where are you from? The moment they say America, you now start asking stupid questions like, which part of America? What language do you speak? As at this point, it doesn't matter. The only thing that matters right now is mind your business and shut your mouth. If Black Americans are not coming for you, stay on your lane. I will keep saying this in all of my videos. Before Black Americans will stitch your videos, come for you and say whatsoever they want to say to you, it is the fact that you started with them. It is the fact that you do not want to mind your business. It is the fact that they were literally keeping quiet, but you choose to make them interfere in your business, and that is why they will literally interfere. And that's why a lot of people are not comfortable. You see them as competitors for no reason. People that are not seeing you as competitor, you're seeing them as competitor. That's quite a shame, honestly. Every other race should just learn to mind their business. Let everybody just work in peace and unity. And that's all Black Americans are asking for. And I think that is not too much. So if you're still among those group of people tagging Black Americans lazy, tagging Black Americans or calling them names that literally do not belong to them, honestly, shame on you at this point. Shame on you. Because if there's anybody that should be disturbing you, making you feel uncomfortable, it should be these people. But these people are trying their possible best. They will even go to the point of patronizing you. But still, you will still have the guts, the audacity, the effrontery, the temerity to treat Black Americans the way you so wish to treat them. It's sad and it's disappointing. But let me know what you think about this video. Credits belong to the original creators of every single clips and stitches we have in our today's episode. I want to say a very big thank you to every single one of you. Liking, commenting, sharing, dropping super thanks, and also joining my membership. I do not take you guys for granted. You guys are absolutely the best. And yes, guys, thank you so much for staying stick and hook with me to the end of this video. Yes, with that being said, with no further ado, I do like I always say in my videos, I'm going to be saying bye, guys, and I'll see you guys in my next one. For now, bye. I love you guys. Mwah.